Good evening, friends, and welcome to Late Night Thoughts. Kind of creepy voice, should probably change that. Anyways, what is Late Night Thoughts? I think most of you know this certain vibe on a late night after a long week. You sit down maybe with a glass of wine, with some friends, and the super interesting topics come up. So I'm trying to kind of capture this feeling, even though that is actually due to a lack of options for grape juice and not wine. I'm actually not wearing glasses, these are fake. And I don't think I'll have to mention that one. It's not a fireplace. At least it is 2 in the morning. So feel free to grab a drink of your choice. Cheers, and join me in this discussion. Jump on this train of thought and let me hear your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments. So, what better topic to start off thoughts and opinions than opinions themselves? Where can we actually form good opinions? When we talk about certain topics, we can distinguish between, I'd say, 3 forms. There are facts, opinions, and tastes, beliefs, whatever you want to call them. What do I mean by that? Facts are things that you can't really discuss or argue about. Say, when did that event take place? 2 plus 2 equals 4. It is by definition, right? And you can't really argue about these facts unless you go super philosophical and question reality itself, which you of course can do, but on the other hand of the spectrum, we get tastes or beliefs. Say someone brings up that his favorite color is red. And of course you can try to convince that person that blue is like the best color ever and you should love that more than red. But let's face it, at the end of the day, there's no accounting for taste, which is totally fine. I mean, why not? Have your own taste, beliefs in what you like, what you enjoy, what you prefer, whatever. Between those two is the point where it gets interesting. Imagine them being as some sort of spectrum. Close to facts you find things that aren't like 100% sure, so you can kind of start arguing and questioning about them. As well as on the other side where you say like, yeah, sure, this is taste, but this has also some kind of real life implications, and there's also some facts you might consider. Say for example, someone says he loves Justin Bieber's music. It's his taste in music, whatever, okay. But then again, you get questions like, do you think his music is good, like compared to maybe classical music? There you get to points where you can kind of start arguing and saying, how do we define good music? Is it like maybe not as complex as older classical music? Someone might argue, it's popular though, so maybe we should just evaluate music by saying how popular it is, whatever. You can kind of get a discussion going there. So these kind of come together, and I think the most interesting questions arise here in the middle, where there's a lot of options to argue. So in this middle area, you find topics that are often related to social development, moral issues, politics, maybe definitions of something, where there are definitely facts involved, but also personal opinions can arise, like that is right, that is wrong, or that is better, or that is worse. Say for example, I ask you, what was the first communist state in world history? You might have a rough idea what it could be. You're probably going to start researching, read different opinions on the topic, read different facts. At the end of the day, you might come up with your own opinion. First of all, you feel like there's some academic background to this whole topic. There's intelligent people who probably thought about this and came up with the good answers. Second of which, this is probably not affecting you too much emotionally. You're not gonna be super devastated if you find out that no, it's actually not in Russia, but whatever. And you're probably gonna make a rational decision regarding your opinion. But in everyday life, we oftentimes encounter questions that affect us more and that are not in this academic, scientific realm. It might be questions about politics or morals. And while on the first question regarding the communist state, you did not have an opinion from the get-go, on moral or political questions, most people do that. There's an interesting study from the year 2001 by Jonathan Haidt that I'm going to link you down in the descriptions. So Haidt said we get some sort of intuition that just instantly pops up when we encounter such a topic. And our intuition determines our opinion. And from that point on, we try to rationalize and argue in regards to our opinion. which is kind of the other way around if you think about it. It is not rationally thinking about something and forming your opinion, but having the opinion first and trying to prove it in hindsight. A new fireplace. And I really think there is something to this approach. We tend to have a first opinion fairly quick, and from that point on, it kind of acts like a filter. Say you got all these arguments coming in, and you would, as rationally and objectively as humanly possible, try to rate them and say, okay, this is definitely an argument for this side, here's one for that side, that's pretty strong, that's a little weaker. And you've built up the information and you come up with your conclusion where you say, there's something to this side, but yeah, I think the arguments here outweigh this. But due to our quick first opinion, we tend to decide from the get-go. And all the information, all the arguments that come in at this point are kind of weighed out towards our standpoint, right? I can definitely relate to this at least. When you say, I'm on this side, you hear a counter argument, but you say, or you hear another argument that might strengthen your standpoint and you quickly adopt it and say, yeah, that is true, that is right. But why do we form our first opinion so quickly? There's a lot of reasons for this, but as I mentioned before, one point is definitely that it affects us personally. We want to be able to make a good moral choice, or we want to be capable of having an opinion regarding politics or an everyday life topic. Especially in Western countries, we get raised and educated having an opinion on a lot of things, which, don't get me wrong, I think most of the time is a really good thing. But remember going to middle school or maybe even late elementary school, you probably had to write some sort of essays stating your opinion on this or this topic. We kind of grow up learning that we have to have an opinion on virtually everything, that it shows our character, our personality, and it's just natural to have an opinion and to share it. And I kind of felt this educational background here in Japan, where people tend to discuss less. Professors here often complain that their students don't discuss enough, and I think it's pretty interesting to see, because people here tend to take longer to form an opinion on things. They feel like there's people who probably know this better than me, so who am I to have an opinion at this point? Which I think kind of shows the more collectivistic background of the society here. And I think we can definitely learn something from this attitude. So we kind of grow up learning that it is important to have an opinion and to stand for it and fight for it, which is a dangerous combination. Because often in everyday life, even though we don't know much about a topic, people say, what's your opinion on this? And we find ourselves forced to say, I'm on this side, even though we haven't heard a lot, even though we haven't reflected on the topic. And from here we start to argue, even though it would probably be better to have a more objective and rational first thought on a certain topic and form your opinion after that. And also, we don't really like to lose an argumentation, do we? So imagine this scenario where someone forces you to have an opinion right away. You don't know enough, you start to argue, you kind of get lost, you don't want to lose though. Probably most of you had that situation where you've been arguing with someone where he's running out of arguments, but at the end of the day still says, whatever, I'm gonna stick to my opinion. Even though he is apparently wrong or can't really argue for his standpoint anymore. And you're like, really, come on. Because we kind of feel like our opinion is part of our personality and of our character. So if we lose an argument, if our opinion turns out to be wrong, it's like we are wrong. Sometimes we just read the headline of an article or hear one opinion of a friend or family member, and it kind of determines our opinion, and we tend to stick to that opinion even though it just originated from one input. So am I saying that we shouldn't discuss unless we spend hours reading about a certain topic or being an expert in that field? Not at all, definitely not. A vivid discourse is super essential just to our flow of knowledge and to learn how to argue properly, to see all the different perspectives on certain topics, to shape our critical thinking, and to make rational decisions in the end. But I do think that we can improve a little and learn from our Japanese friends over here. By taking our time to form an opinion, it's totally fine to have your first thoughts and say, wow, that sounds like a legit argument here. But just take some time and listen to the other arguments, and don't forget about that filter that we tend to have once we forged our first opinion. And secondly, do not be afraid to be wrong from time to time, to change your mind. We kind of feel like our opinions are connected to our personality and we shouldn't lose an argument, and it's kind of weird if we change our mind on a topic. But that happens. That's totally fine. If you realize, wow, I haven't thought of this. I obviously just saw the one side and I never realized that there's also this argument and that point. So now I kind of feel like maybe this is the way to go. Don't be afraid to change your mind. Don't be afraid to lose an argument. That's okay. Personally, I think it's a sign of a really strong personality if someone says, actually, you are right. I should rethink this. I do believe that with this attitude, we can learn so much more while keeping our rationality. So don't think that you lose a part of your personality or of your values by changing your mind on a certain topic. You're probably even gonna come closer to it. But that was just my opinion, and I'm looking forward to hearing yours. So thank you for joining me, and until next time, good night.